First of all, it wasn't made on purpose, but in fact, I'm so happy to be talking to you right now, because maybe it's going to look like I'm going to use some of the material that's been, so fantastically given to us by the persons who spoke before me. And I'm going to take advantage of that. But first of all, I would like to invite you to do a little game. As it happens, I've not been very proud of it, but at one point in my life, I've been suffering about the fact that people would tell me that I look like Morpheus, from the Matrix movies. So it's been a pain because I was quite young, and, having such a nickname, well, for some, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But just as Morpheus did in the movie, you're going to be given some candies, like, some blue pill, okay? But you can eat them, it's candies, no problem. And some red one, obviously, like this. And exactly like they did in the movie, yes, please. Exactly like they did in the movie, this presents you with a choice, okay? And let's say traditionally, because this trick has been used by many people now, the red pill represents the choice of, well, in the movie it was truth, but the fact that you are here tells me that you already made that choice. So it's more like choosing to go for a change, trying to implement it in your life, okay? And, okay, it's very symbolic and everything, but believe me, with what I'm going to tell you afterwards, you're going to know that, you're going to understand that symbolic is very, very, very important. Some other people would say that I look like a drug dealer. And I'm not pretty sure if I made good about that, distributing all those candies. The fact is, I am a drug dealer, literally, okay? I'm a trained pharmacist, so I deal drugs. And as a researcher, I'm developing some new drugs. But before I go further in what I want to talk to you about, let's see how did I get there. So I was born in France some years ago. But quickly I moved to Gabon because my father was from there. So I was raised in Central Africa in the equatorial forest, which is such a huge and rich, biodiversity when it comes to animal, plants, you name it. It's fantastic, even though the territory is so small. So very early in my life, I've been in contact with some fantastic people who have been living there for ages, like, thousands of years, literally. And they've been so well adapted to their environment, knowing not everything, but really knowing how to interact with it. And this was prior to my training in science and pharmacy when I got back in France. This had a huge impact on me because when I was there, Gabon is a very small country, but with many different, African nationalities there. So I've been in contact with the diversity inside what we could see from here as an African culture. There are many of them, and sometimes the differences are even bigger than the differences between some of them and France or even the US. It's really, really, really specific. And then the first thing that struck me is how much some things that were simple for some people would be very complicated for others. And the other way around, of course. So very early in my life, I understood that linking, cross-linking, overlapping, finding the ways to make people communicate, making cultures communicate inside my own head, was such a key for the development. And I'm going to tell you just a little story about that. As a young boy, I've been taught something by the hunters in the forest. There were monkey hunters, but they would try and catch the monkeys alive. So it's very tricky because, as you might know, monkeys are very agile and everything, much more than we are. So they had a very simple trick. Took a coconut, make a hole in it. It has to be very small, but just as big as to be able to put a palm nut into it. The palm tree, which gives us the famous oil. And the monkeys love that. So they would put it inside. But again, the hole is just as big as the nut could go through it. Monkeys love that. And of course, the coconut is, tied to whatever object that's, not moving, like a tree or whatever. So the monkey would come, put his little hand inside the hole, grab the nut, and then try to pull it out. But it's impossible, because with the hand, now the hole is not big enough, okay? So this is a very powerful trap because it doesn't harm the monkey, and the monkey would just have to let go of the nut in order to, to break free, but he wouldn't because he loves it too much. Okay? So I don't think that I need to go further into telling you how useful this proves in my business life nowadays. Okay? This is a trick that I'm using all the time. It works perfectly. Because again, some biologists have been, told that, okay, you're experimenting on behavior with animals and especially with rats and everything. I'll say, well, okay, we are humans and we are much more complicated than, rats or whatever. Those biologists would argue that, okay, yeah, we might be very, much more complicated than them, but I'm not sure we are really using what we have on top of them. Okay? So, yeah. Now I'm going to tell you a bit more about what it brought to me. This, when I was told at first that, the idea was to talk about a perfect product, I was worried. I was worried because perfection is such a dangerous idea in so many ways. And a product is such an undefined idea in some other ways. So, as I told you before, thanks to my experience with, different type of cultures, because what I didn't tell you is when I was, a teenager, as if the different type of cultures I was in was not enough already, I went for, Asian cultures. I was passionate about China, Taoism, Buddhism, and everything around it, like Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And a little bit, later in my life, I went to Brazil. And Brazil is such a wonderful place where cultures are mixed and everything. Not always happily, yes, but even though they're going to teach us what not to do, okay, and how not to do it. So it's a very, very interesting country. I've been passionate about that for years now. So what it brought me is the sense of coherence. Coherence is the way to understand and to see how different things are going to interact with each other in a fluid way, which makes them more efficient than separate parts. And this is what I apply with my passion for nature, science, and ancestral knowledge. This, for me, is the very foundation of what I do. It's my everyday life. And I'm so happy about it. It makes me feel like I don't go to work when I wake up in the morning. So, when we talk about a product and how good it is supposed to be, there is something that's the first idea, according to what I just said, is we have to consider the whole chain of what a product is made of. Like, of course, there is the sourcing, there is the conception even before the sourcing, there is the development, there is everything, marketing, distribution, whatever. All these different parts are very well known for our industry. What lacks is coherence. Okay, some days ago I made a joke about we got we got people responsible and in charge of conception, of development, sourcing, whatever, but no one is in charge of coherence. Coherence is how all those different departments are going to talk together, and especially how are they going to be on the same page with the same specifications, not trying to compete with each other, but really collaborating. And this is where I'm beginning, to use what Gauthier told us before, because it was so nice and so explicit about explaining how in nature things are collaborating, and Jean-François did too, and how we can use it, So what I'm proposing is we are trying to use it, and not just trying, we are actually using it in the conception and in the way our industries and businesses are working. And I'm going to give you some practical example about that later. But first, let's get back to perfection. As I told you, perfection is a dangerous idea. But I think there is something we could all get along with. It's that perfection might be a matter of perception. Okay? As if, to consider that something is perfect is an opinion most of the time. Okay? So, this perfection thing is very, very, very important, because it doesn't mean that there is no flaw in it. It means that we like it so much, and that's it. We consider it to be perfect. So again, it's a matter of perception. So about that, I think we should try and see what tool we have to appreciate this notion. And of course, I'm talking about our brain. And I'm not going to go, all neuroscience or neurobiology on you, okay? I would like it, because I'm just just so much love it, but that's not the point. The point is, I just want to give you some small ideas about how our brain functions. So let's not consider the brain, on an anatomical level, but more on a functional level. So what we have are three different parts. Okay, one part is mainly focused on action, survival, not thinking so much, but a very, very, very big knowledge, which is where biomimicry could come, because this is our inner biological cellular knowledge. This is what makes a dog somehow choose to go and chew a grass, when he's got some stomachache, even though dogs are not supposed to eat grass. Okay, but they are, because they're going to feel something that's good for them. Okay, that's not even emotion. Then we get the other part, the memory and emotion part, which is so important. And I really want to thank Guillaume, who spoke just before me, because he made me save some time, because he was so wonderful explaining how passion is important, how what you feel is important in whatever type of creation you're going to make. And then we get this neocortex, which is the external part, the part where we are dealing with complex information. I just want to give you one insight on that. Many of you might be, rational people. And as rational people, of course, the one in this room, but you might have encountered some rational people which are getting a little bit nervous and even agitated or even angry when you are contradicting their beliefs, when you are contradicting the theories that they're applying in their job. Okay? How many scientists cannot stand the fact that we are talking about, okay, I believe, I feel that this plant is good. Okay, this is not science. And that reaction is obviously an emotion. It's not rational at all. There is no point in getting angry or getting emotional if someone is not, in accordance with you. Okay? But most of rational people, if you look carefully, they react like that. Which means they are not using the complex part of the brain, the neocortex. They're actually using the emotional part of the brain. Okay? This is something we can discuss later, because it's really, really important. Most of the time, when we think we're rational, we're not. Because when you are rational, just a slight key, you have no preconceived idea about anything. Okay? You can try anything. You are open to anything. Because it's exactly like a computer. A computer doesn't refuse any information or data. No, it takes it. It tries to compute it. Okay? So this is something about being open. We have built-in openness in our brain. We just don't use it. Okay? What's quite a shame is that most of the time we don't use our action survival part either. We are stuck in the memory emotional part, going from what we think is rationality, which is actually modelism, because science nowadays is not much more about observation, which I learned not by scientists, but by the tribes and the hunters I've been dealing with when I was a young boy. And this is actually the basic skill for a scientist, okay? Observation. But most of the time, we forget about it. And even when we observe, we have preconceived ideas. And when a fact is contradicting a theory, we say that the fact is impossible. This is crazy. This is not rational at all. Theory is just derived from the fact. So if a fact contradicts a theory, it's the theory that is false, not the fact. Okay? It's as simple as that. And when we look at how we are functioning, then we understand why we don't get along with each other, because if someone is going emotional on you, especially when he thinks that he is rational, and if you are actually being rational, like open to anything, he's going to feel like he's in danger, because some other part of his brain is going to be switched on. And that's biology. It's not philosophy, it's not matter of opinion, it's biology. So I think it's very, very interesting to have that common ground in order to see where we can go with that. So, what I would like to tell you, what I would like you to keep in mind after coherence, which is fundamental to make things work, is that our perception is global, and in 3 coherent dimensions, at the minimum, because when we introduce time and everything, it goes further, but at the minimum, it's 3 dimensions. But what I mean is that, of course, when you look at an object, you could see it in, the 3 traditional dimensions. But what is true is our brain is actually perceiving even ideas in 3 dimensions. And that's a bit new, maybe. So how does that apply to a product? As it happens, I think we can all agree that a product is going to be the ingredients, the material that compose it, the display, like the packaging and whatever the way you can present your product to your consumers, and the ideas, branding, marketing, and everything. We all know that the most important part to sell a product is the idea. That's why marketing departments are so powerful in our industry. What we don't do is we don't have a coherence, again, between all those departments. Like the marketing, like Jean-François told us a little bit before, the marketing department is going to say everything's fantastic, and then the packaging is going to have to go accordingly, so to make sure that people think that the product is fantastic, but then the price is beginning to be a problem. But then the material, most of the time, it has to be the cheapest in order for the company to be able to pay for the big marketing. So there is some kind of shifting of energy, prioritizing of what we think to be important, and because we are wired and educated, not wired, but educated, conditioned to think that only one thing is important, instead of seeing global, we are putting all our energy on what we think is the top. But that's stupid. There is no top without bottom. And the bottom is actually supporting the top. So marketing, like saying what you do is good and everything, is fantastic. If it is the truth. If it is exactly what you're doing. And that's when, again, I want to thank Guillaume for sharing that. It was a wonderful marketing speech. But it was true. He was saying what is living. Okay? He's saying that I'm selling what I'm living. It's fantastic. That's the way to go. But that's my opinion. But actually, those principles are applying in so many different areas. As I told you about marketing, but I'm going to go further on that. Leadership, fantastic. For the same reasons, the fact that you're going to be keen to go for an idea or make a decision. And nothing is about, well, nothing, no, then I'm going crazy again. No, it's not exactly what you're doing. That's not the most important part. It's not even how you do it. How you do it's good, but that's not the most important part. And those two are, some people in communication are, ready to go as far as the how. Like, okay, I make a car or I make a product. This is how I make it, and this is why my product is fantastic. So they're not going any further than the how. But, okay, it sells, but not that much. But then, why you do it, that's the big seller. Okay? What we heard before is, okay, about the how, the emotion, this is how I do it. But then, Guillaume told us also why he's doing it. He's doing it because this is his life. This is what he wants to do when he wakes up in the morning. So even if we don't share the same emotion as him, we all want to do that. We all want to have such kind of a beautiful life, being able to rise and shine in the morning because we're going to do our passion. I was about to use the Apple example because Apple is a company. It might be the only company, computer makers that are also able to sell telephones and MP3 players and whatever type of product they're going with. Everyone's buying it. Okay, many other players of this industry tried, but they didn't succeed because Apple is not perceived as a computer maker. It's perceived as someone who's shaking the status quo, with using design and product as a tool. Okay, so because we all want to be trendy, we all want to be in those top, thinking or whatever type of people in this, wave of moving society and being on top of that. We all want to have those products as a symbol of that. Okay, the products are just a way to appropriate the idea, and this is why they are making so much money. Okay, but again, I told you about it. I decided not to, because I just wanted to use Guillaume as my example. It was perfect. He told you why he's doing it, how, and then, okay, he's doing perfume. But you can totally imagine the same, speech about doing anything. Anything. Okay? And you would be as interested about this product as you might be now about his perfume. Oh, and about it, to be totally honest, there is a guy I have to, it's Simon Sinek, which made such a tremendous work about that, and his ideas could be, summed up by, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. There are many examples of that, like Martin Luther King. He wasn't the greatest speaker at the time, but people would follow him without Twitter, without anything. 1 million people, coming for, his speech and everything. People do, and people buy why you do things, not what you do. So, about the sourcing, I'm going to give you a more personal example. We all know of, or I've heard about some crazy and sometimes very sad stories about people being exploited, in halfway around the world in some poor countries because they have so fantastic raw materials, but they don't know how to use it and they don't have the market for it. So we just go there, we take it, we give them, some spare change, and we make the big money out of it. I could tell you many stories about of that, and I personally lived some of them, but I'm just going to go directly to the solution I implement now. Nowadays, when I go and when we go with my company in a country to get some raw material, what we do is we make sure that anything we ask the people to harvest or cultivate from us, for us, is going to be usable directly by them. For food, for healthcare, for whatever type of equipment, energy, you name it. And if they don't know how to do it, we can even help train them in order for them to be able to use it directly. So that even if no one is actually buying it from them, they didn't work for nothing. There are so many very sad stories, even some entire countries, getting poor because suddenly the international market goes down and everything, goes sideways. The second layer is the local market. Since they're able to use it, we have to make sure that there is a local market for the material. This way, even if I die, I wish not, but who knows? Even if anything we are trying to do here disappears, their local market is going to support their efforts and is going to help them grow from it. And there is another thing. When Guillaume told you they were so happy to be able to smell the actual perfume that has been made with their raw material. This is fantastic. But let's do that on site. Let's help them make some final product, some good final product with their raw material. This makes such an impact, not only economical, at a human level. The recognizance, really, it's fantastic. I could not, begin to tell you how powerful this tool is. And then, of course, there is the international market. This is for us. This is good. This is, most of the time, a little bit more added value, but I have to be honest with you. If you have done your work perfectly, the local market might be even bigger than the international one. Okay? This is a way to network, to build a network equally. And with this, when I'm asked about this, they say, oh, you might be philanthropic and everything. I say, no, I'm not at all. This is for my benefit. Because when I work with people which are developing themselves, they're going to be more reliable. Okay? Someone who is making good money, who can support the health of his children and everything, it's going to be very difficult for him to change and go for something else. And it's going to be very difficult for him not to try and go further in that direction. Okay? So the best it is for him, the best it is for me. Okay? This is something else about sharing, and because we talked about it a little bit earlier, sharing and networking is such a powerful tool. There is another example. When you have 10 euros in the city, like Grasse or Paris or whatever, you can do so many things. You can, go for so many kilometers because there is public transportation and everything. You go in the jungle, you have those same 10 euros. You're going to have big problems making half the way because there are no infrastructure, there is nothing. So you have to directly pay for everything. Okay? So if you have all the money in an undeveloped country, so in a country or in a place where you don't share anything, actually, you have less power than if you share some, and with even less money in the end. Okay? So, a little bit more about what you're trying to do, because I remember that now that we're trying to make a perfect product. Okay? So, we talked about coherence, we talked about those 3 layers we have, and about those 3 layers, there's something I didn't say. There might be the biological root of the compass that, Jean-François told us about. Okay, we can talk about it a little bit later. It's biologically wired inside us. That's why it's so powerful. So about conception, like let's say we want to try and make a product, and then we go back to biomimicry. how nature is evolving, how nature is making new things. Well, mutations, of course, selection, to better adapt. I don't want to go into the debate about evolution and everything, but let's consider that we agree on the fact that evolution exists, okay? So if we want to implement that in what we could call natural innovation, I'm going to propose you something that you all know of. It's the trial and error principle. The multiple trials without preconception. Actually, it might look a little bit more like a child or a passionate man like Guillaume playing with raw materials, more than, the usual type of scientist. Because the usual type of scientist would try and characterize some parameters and go for them and try and see, which is very interesting and which is very important too. But at an earlier level of development, it is critical to just try everything and anything that could cross your mind, even though it seems silly. Because again, if you're using only old tools, you might end up with only results that you already know, or you could expect. To find the unexpected, to find some crazy things, you have to go for crazy stuff, really. So no preconception. And then you might select, the one you like most and go for whatever number of generation you want to try, okay? Up until you're going to find the perfect result. And the type of result you're going to get is not something that could have been modelized before. Never. Because the number of parameters that are changing is too huge. It's impossible to preconceive, actually. So that's why just play with it, go along with your imagination, but then rigorously analyze them, get the one you prefer, and from that result, go again for variations with your imagination. Okay? Because what we do when we do that, we are using all the different parts of our brain. The trap is to use only one. If you use them all, it's perfect. So play has to be part of your job. That's why without pleasure, without liking what you do, you're much less efficient. So, let's sum up everything I tried to leave you with. The first thing is whatever product or whatever idea, it's a three-dimension thing. What it means is you're interested in something, you want to try anything, try and find how your brain is perceiving it in 3 dimensions. So what are the 3 dimensions of what you try to do? That's exactly what we did when we say beauty, truth, and goodness. Those are the 3 dimensions of perfection, somehow. Okay? You might find some other way to say it. It's not important. What's important is that you find a way that talks to you, beyond what you consider to be reason. And I really hope if you had to just get out with one thing, that you would know that reason is not what you think it is. It's much more open than what you think it is. So the 3-dimension thing is very important. Coherence is, at the very least, almost as important. We are very different here. Okay, we manage to be sitting and listening because we agree to go for one goal. Okay, this is the first type of coherence. But then there are many other ways, like dancing, when 2 people are dancing. Okay, it's fantastic. And when coherence appears in front of you, whether you like it or not, you're going to love it. Whether you like the activity, you're going to love it. You're going to see it's beautiful. Okay, because this is nature in its efficiency. 2 different things are working together, or even more than 2, 4, 5, 6, in a coherent way. And at least, I think that the more they are acting coherently, the more beautiful it is. And we need it to be efficient. And then there is trial and error in a fashion that is totally, totally, totally open. And if you try and use those 3 types of tricks that I gave you, I'm really looking forward to hear what you're going to find. Because we are lucky enough to find so many things with that. Like, clay might be the oldest, cosmetic product of the world. Like, animals are using it. Okay, any very old culture is using it. But we were lucky enough to be able to develop some innovation that were good enough to get patents, not 1, but 3, on clay last year. It's crazy. It's one of the most studied material, on our industry. But still, there are so many new things to discover those because we played with it, because we applied those principles. Okay? And there is one last thing I would like to leave you with. This is a quote that I really love, because I could go and, sorry, excuse my French, and BS you and telling you that this is Lao Tzu or whatever, or this is, an old African, say, or even an old, something from Europe, from old Europe. I don't know where it comes from. But it talks about time, it talks about nature, nature's law, and it talks about surfing on the wave. Thanks very much.